Hey everyone, it's Jaime Alejandro, and you're listening to the Arts Calling podcast, the place where I interview hardworking independent creatives in the literary, visual, and performing arts. I have an exceptional conversation lined up for you here, so let me cut to the chase. Today, I am over the moon. I'm excited to be Arts Calling the creative team behind Welcome to the Big Dipper, a brand new musical. Welcome to the Big Dipper is a musical about home, family, identity, and finding unexpected community in a house full of strangers. There's so much to talk about, so let's cut to the chase. I am joined by Catherine Filloux, Jimmy Roberts, John Daggett, Demone Seraphin, and just so you're aware, Welcome to the Big Dipper premieres this week at the York Theatre Company November 21st, and it runs to December 29th. So please check out the links in the episode description so you can get your tickets for November or December if you're in the area. So with that out of the way, let's give them a call. Well, folks, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I'm really delighted to have all of you here, the collaborative team, the creative team behind Welcome to the Big Dipper. Folks, if we may take a minute to introduce all of you, I'm really excited to talk about the work and maybe some of your current thoughts on musical theater and collaboration. But perhaps we can start with Catherine and work our way down just to get a sense of who you are.
Yes, I'm Catherine Filloux, and I am half of the book writer on the project, and also it was based on a play that I wrote called All Dressed Up and Nowhere to Go. Thank you.
And I'm John Daggett. I'm the other half of the book writing team. I also assisted Jimmy Roberts with a very small portion of the lyrics.
I'm Jimmy Roberts, aforementioned, the composer and the lyricist for Welcome to the Big Dipper.
Hey, and I'm Demone Seraphin. I'm the director for Welcome to the Big Dipper. Oh, and I'm also in it. I play Mr. Sapper.
Playing double duty. Excellent.
Yeah.
So if we may get a sense of the play, perhaps we can learn a bit more about what this piece is about. If anyone would like to give us a pitch, give us the actual story of what Welcome to the Big Dipper is about.
Well, I'll just quickly start, and then it would be great if our team joined in, because everybody has their own dimension of what they're doing on it. It's a story about a woman who runs a historical inn in upstate New York, and sadly, the historical inn has fallen on very difficult times. And in addition, she's lost her mother, who owned the inn before her, and her son has the aspiration to go to USC in California. And our lead character, Joan Wilkes, has decided to sell. And she's really ready to do it. She has a deal with a real estate person, Bonnie, and it's all set to go. A blizzard is coming in, very, very bad blizzard in upstate New York. And into that comes a crash between a van that has some Amish people in it. And then in a bus, there are a group of men dressed up as in dresses. They are the Sirens of Syracuse. And so they are shepherded to stay at this historical inn, and 3 days ensue in which they need to figure out the future.
And I'll add that this is takes place close to Niagara Falls, south of Niagara Falls, in which one of the young Amish teen who's in Rumspringa and is constantly trying to flee her father, and she actually wants to go to Niagara Falls for her own personal reasons, which if you come see the show, you'll find out. She befriends the son of the owner of the inn. There's kind of an attraction there. And they in turn try to take a snowmobile up to Niagara Falls to fulfill a quest that this young Amish girl has. And the community within the inn, an African American community, which the owner is African American, the Amish people, and the cross dressers all have to kind of pull together and able to save and find the teens.
So I would say, imagine the mix of these three groups that we've just named: the African American community, a club of cross-dressing men from Syracuse, New York, and Amish community, extended family from Pennsylvania, all in the confines of this historic house for 3 days and nights, stranded by the snow. And imagine what they sing.
I always say it is the beautiful possibilities that await this wildly disparate community of people who are forced to shelter in place in a place that is historic, but also deeply spiritual and deeply magical. And that when and if they avail themselves to the gift of this place, their lives can be shifted, changed, transformed for the better. It's one of the watchwords I guess we've developed or come to is that our differences don't make us deficient. And if we let them, our differences could actually bind us, and we come to see that we're more alike than not when it really all comes down to it.
I think that's a beautiful way to set the tone here for this piece, which immediately, as you mention the musical, I'm drawn to the idea of the Big Dipper as this sanctuary, as this place of complete reprieve from the madness of the outside world, in a place where perhaps a kind of unity can take place. And so I'm curious if we could maybe begin talking about the place in particular. How much of a character is the Big Dipper, and how did you discover that sort of flavor that was needed and to create a type of sanctuary that could facilitate all of these happenings?
Yeah, it is absolutely the main character in our show. That this again, this wildly disparate group of people are brought into this place that holds the history and legacy and energy of travelers past whose lives too have been changed. That the gift of this place, though on face value seems anything but, uh, the gift of this house to these disparate people is that beyond the things that make them different, there is something deep within that unifies them. It is not a character in the play that does not speak. The house speaks in its way. The house opens doors in its way. And so part of the process for us in terms of building this community is that we allow ourselves to come into this space with all of our stuff, with all of our issues, with all of the ails, with all of the ills of life. And the hope is that through the journey, we can be transformed and that we extend that possibility for transformation to audiences who will also take a trek into the Big Dipper. That they're not just those who are spectators, but the hope is that they too will avail themselves to the spiritual, magical, historical possibilities that rest in that place.
You can see why Demone is the director.
Absolutely. And Jimmy, if we may sort of dabble in the musical component here, how does a sanctuary speak musically? How does the Big Dipper find its voice musically? And how does one complement that journey to transformation, if you will?
Well, just like Demone was saying about the house being a character, in the theater biz, you write music for character. You're really a dramatist through your music. You're not trying to write a pop hit. You're trying to match your music to the character. So I start with a character of the house, and it has kind of a magical little theme that's like a leitmotif in opera that appears in and out of the show. Then we have the cast of characters with their differing personalities and situations they find themselves in, confined to this one locale for the entire show. And that inspires music of different moods and music that kind of outlines the characters that are singing it. We have a kind of a melancholy Amish father. We have a transgender woman. We have a husband who dresses secretly, and he has a surface way of expressing himself, which I do musically, and then he has a very deep inner way of expressing himself, which I also do musically. And those two ways are different, just like we have inner voices and outer appearance, and try to have music for both.
And Catherine, John, perhaps we can sort of open up the conversation just a bit to include some of these other characters, and in particular Joan and the entire ensemble. As Jimmy's mentioning, they all seem to have their own voices, and how in managing all of this, one might call it a sort of like the spinning plates going all over the place. How does one manage the sensibilities of each character to bring unity in the way that is necessary, whether it's musically or just narratively? I know all of those things go together, but what are the biggest challenges in finding unity amidst all of these different characters and possibilities?
Yeah. So in addition, the piece begins with a song of the travelers to show us that this is historic, that people are always coming in and leaving. And then we also have the history of our main character, Joan, having a mother called Mama Viola, who was the person who ran the inn and is represented by a portrait. And that the legacy of this will continue. And so I think spinning plates is a good analogy. I think balance is one of the challenges in terms of, if one way to say it is giving everybody their due. In other words, to make sure that everybody has the depth that is needed to portray each character, so that they can then participate, obviously, in the musical aspects of the piece. And it really, I believe, is a proportional balancing act in terms of representing all of the people in the story.
The story kind of tells us also, or depicts in the telling of it, that we all as human beings kind of stand on the shoulders of other people, our people in our past, whether they be relatives, direct relatives, or friends, or teachers, or philosophers, or religious people. We're kind of all standing on their shoulders, and sometimes need to remember that that history exists and that we need to acknowledge it in order to go forward. There's a definite sense of the people coming into this place from the past and potential people coming into the inn in the future. You asked about how we depict the characters or bring that onto the stage. Of course, that's a lot of the challenge and the obstacles and the dramatic question of the piece. Can these people find a way to seek harmony and achieve the harmony? So a lot of the songs kind of deal with not only the obstacles between the different groups, but their own internal obstacles, their own internal questions that they're trying to answer for themselves. So it's been quite of a challenge, I think, for all of us to find uh, the common themes and melodies, as it were, of telling the story. But it's been a real learning curve for me, but a real joy and a real work of love. So.
Right. And as I've read recently, this has been a project that has been in the works for a while. So you've had time to let it simmer, to let it take on a life of its own. And I'm curious how defined the core aspects of this piece were, because if I'm not mistaken, this was about 10 years in the making, if I'm read correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So when you first find Catherine's initial play that this musical is inspired on, what are the elements that immediately leap at you? What drew you to it? And I guess what were the pieces of momentum that you found in the piece that would allow you to build on that as the foundation?
Well, John
Whoever
is
would
the
like to go first.
John, John saw Cats play as a musical.
Right. Katrine wrote this. It was how many characters in it? Maybe five,
5
Cat?
or 6. Yeah.
And a couple of them played multiple characters. And it was pretty farcical, I guess, a dark farce. Um, and in a lot of ways, it reminds me of certain elements of like The Tempest, Shakespeare's The Tempest, in the sense it's a group of people that have been shipwrecked on an island. In this case, this is a historical inn and whatnot. I did several readings of it before it was finally produced, I think, down in Baltimore is what I want to say. And I never got to perform in it, unfortunately for me. And it always kind of screamed to me to want to be something more than just this kind of small farcical play. And I started looking at it as its potential for a musical. I I wrote lyrics and composed some music. I was very poor at it, and that's when we approached Jimmy to see if he would be interested in composing the music and writing the lyrics, which he was. And it truly takes on a life of its own when you start working on something like this. The piece tells you what it wants as you work on it. We must have tried to run up the mountain 3 times with 3 different versions of writing the piece. One of which was close to my version of what I had done. Another one that was very close to Katrine's original source material of the play. And we ripped it all down and started it again from scratch. And the version that that it exists right now is really a collaboration between Katrine and Jimmy and myself of the source material with the situation, I think, and the different groups and the locale, but is very, very different from the play and how it existed before. It's really amazed me in working on it how it kind of takes you by the horns and steers you in directions of where it wants to go to tell the story. And a lot of that has to do with how and when you use music to springboard, if I can use that word, into the next transition of where the story wants to take you. So it's been a lot of fun.
Certainly. And oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that then, and of course, the director is a collaborator too and puts his or her own stamp on it. And all the things you've just said have been suffused with our Demone's perspective on the story we're telling.
Right.
Yeah,
And Demone,
there's
go ahead.
another shift. There's another shift after that, then, because then there are 10, 12 other people who then come into the room who are then affected by the material in various ways. And
Right.
so, the Katrine started with this 5-person farcical play. It is now grown into uh, what it is right now, even beyond what we've been wrestling with in our private workshop together. Uh, that you come into the room again with some wildly disparate people with their various experiences and backgrounds and journeys and their response to the material that then opens the door to further exploration, to where the play ultimately in this ideation finds its heartbeat, finds its
Mm.
shape, finds the way it lives and breathes in space. uh, what happens when it goes to another company of people, not that the lyrics or the music changes, but with every kind of different experience, particularly with this musical, you open yourself up to this show taking a very singular and definitive shape of its own. I don't think any one production will be quite the same,
Right.
because of the way it really does depend on those 12 people who will inhabit those characters and bring their different points of view and
Mhm.
experience to the material that will then allow that material to live in a very unique way specific to that community that's telling the story. It's beautiful in that
Yeah.
way. um and we're learning that even as as we come into this phase of putting it together rather quickly. Uh but but we are learning really what this show ultimately, like John says, wants to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And it comes with all of the things that you would suspect that it comes with. One of my mentors, Hal Prince, says there are great days, and then there are days that are not so great where you go home and you try to come back and figure it out. You come in with a thought and an idea, and someone else comes in and they go, "Well, but I was thinking this." And now you go,
Mm.
how do we include that thought or that idea into the mix if it is right? Um, but in terms of trying to discern what that right or wrong is, it really is taking our cue from the source material and then how that material lands on the heart and on the mind and then on the lips, the teeth, and the tip of the tongue of the
Mhm.
people who will speak those words, sing those lyrics, and dance the dance.
Yeah.
Right. And as the piece is starting to crystallize for this initial production, I'm curious. I know that we're trying to stay spoiler free because there's a lot of things that folks need to
She
go
dies
to
in
the
the
theater to
end.
see. But as this initial production is crystallizing, I'm curious if, for any of you, if there were some maybe structural problems or musical problems or things that perhaps could only be solved with the cast actually bringing this script to the stage. I'm curious if you saw something that completely changed your perspective on a moment or a problem that you were struggling with. I know that, without getting too specific, it's kind of difficult, but if there was something that made you sort of look at your own work differently once you saw it reflected back
Well,
from the performers.
of course. I mean, it's the thing we're talking about now, and without giving away details, we've also come through a cash change on this. So where we had
Mm.
settled on the show in a specific way with a specific group of people, that group has changed, and so even the way we look at the way music sits on the voice. That there's a different timbre and tension in one person's voice than it is in
Mhm.
another person's voice. It's a different experience than, and then elicits us to come back to the drawing board in spaces when someone else is speaking this text and they feel that text in a way that is completely different than how we've been dancing with it in workshops previous.
Oh,
um, that those are the things that make
um,
us at the end of a rehearsal sit down together and
Demone, I'm
go,
losing you a little bit. Could you back up and repeat that?
Oh boy. Wow. It is to say, yeah, that there are those moments in the process where, we've come in with a very clear idea, or thought about what we thought this material would be, how it would live. But then you realize, oh, musically, this sits differently on this voice than it did on that voice. This
Mhm.
particular actor had this point of view that actually in its playing seems more authentic. How do we go back and capture that authenticity? Or that's not at all what we thought about this moment. So how do we find a balance between those who are playing it and then us remaining authentic to the story that we were trying to tell? Um,
Mhm.
all of those shifts and turns happens in the course of a rehearsal when you bring in those other disparate voices to the table to help bring the play to life.
Just like
Right.
it's a collaboration between the writers, the director, and Jimmy as a composer and lyricist, and the music. When you're doing something like this for the first time, and you bring in live human flesh and blood people who embody the characters and start speaking the lines that you've written, it becomes a collaboration between everybody that's in the room in the rehearsals. And speaking from my point of view as a writer, I keep my eyes and ears open for what is working, what isn't working. And even most recently, this past rehearsal week, Demone took parts of kind of building up to the turn of the show, I would say,
Mhm.
and in a lot of ways ripped them down or deconstructed them in a way where stuff that was happening simultaneously, musically and text-wise, um, put it in a different order that I hadn't thought of, and I don't think Katrine
Mhm.
had. And this was discovered. If I wasn't in the room, you can speak to this, Demone. I think it was
Sure.
between you were working with the actors. That when I did get back in the room and it was done, it made. Oh, and even when I saw it on the page, what the suggestions were, it made much more sense than what we had, prior to that in the script. So all of
Mhm.
it, all of it is uh, an amazing growth process that you have to be available to change,
Well,
change.
it's a living and
Yeah,
breathing organism. It's
yeah.
like children. You have
Yeah.
an idea of what that child is going to be until that child turns around and tells you, "Oh no," or
I'm
you're
not going to be
wrestling.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or you're wrestling. We sit around in a circle, me, Jimmy, John, and Kat, and we go, "Oh, this feels great," and then you get in the room and you're trying to stage it, and you go, "Oh my, this is really confusing," or this character really needs a moment to communicate her thought without interruption. We need the audience to hear, without all of the other things around it, exactly where this character is. Um, the idea on paper for all of the kind of interstitial things exciting, and on paper it's like, oh yeah, this is great, and maybe for a movie it's even great that we can do these jump cuts. But if we
Mhm.
want our audience to zero in on the heart of this character, and we learned it, I sat in that rehearsal trying to, my brain was wrestling going, but the heart of it is going, no, the attention must be paid
Yeah.
here.
Well,
Right. And
just like any play, any musical, any performance work of art, it doesn't exist on the page.
Yeah.
It's not
Mhm.
it's not two-dimensional words across the page. It's got to be up and in space and living, and
Mhm.
uh, you have to respect that, or it'll slap you across the face.
Oh man. And boy, in that
Yeah,
particular moment,
yeah,
it was that. It was
absolutely.
absolutely that.
Well, there's also the issue that, this is new work. And, as a playwright who writes new work, the rehearsal process is one of constant rewriting to adapt to and create what is going to be three-dimensional in front of you. And I think that when you talk about a new musical, these days, new musicals by in this case, Jimmy Roberts, there's jukebox musicals. So in that case, all of the music is fixed and the book will go around the fixed music. This is a moving entity in which it is all brand new. There's not one tried and true number that people can say, oh, I remember the days, but nothing. It's all new. And I think that is, in the end, pretty rare in terms of the American musical canon. And so that's why I, being a portion of this project, feel that it's so kind of groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
The development of the new musical right now, I mean, especially here in this country, Kat made mention, we've landed on this thing that is tried and true. People know these songs. They come to hear those songs. Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. But here, I mean, I always tell people it really harkens us back to that those musicals as we grew up with them, even as they were being developed in days of old. Those songs in the musical became the pop songs of its day. Even still, their creation in context. They're created in the context of, and then of course you find those songs in other musicals. But with this, it's very much tailored to this story. It's very much tailored to the voices of these characters, and I think Jimmy has captured it beautifully. And ironically, and we've done this a bit to try to pull them out of context. Though as beautiful as the music is, the thing that it begs for or that buoys it, is it being in context? Is it being so deeply connected to the journey of these characters? It's the one thing Molly Smith, who was the former artistic director of the Arena Stage, used to always say. And this thing, though this is its world premiere, her thought is that it needs to have at least 5 world premieres before it could really find its footing. Economics demands that we develop these shows. Though we've been in development for 10 years, we've only been in a room with actors for 2 weeks. um, Long gone are those out of town tryouts and those days where you can really try to dig in. So we're doing a lot of work in this period of 2 weeks and some change that would generally be done over 6 weeks. Right. And so again, it speaks to where we are in terms of the economics as we're, producing and creating new musicals. But the hope is that from here we get to come back at it again.
Right.
And to take what we've learned from this journey and go back and make whatever adjustments or ask whatever questions or really sit with how these things affected us in the process and go, okay, for this next ideation we get to focus on this, or we really get to this wasn't as clear or this wasn't as tight. Whatever the challenges presented. But man, it's a gift to be able to come back to an adult musical, with music that hasn't necessarily been drilled in our heads by MTV or the like. Yeah,
That's wonderful,
that was
Demone.
a
I'm
soapbox
delighted
for me,
that you.
Jaime.
No, this is perfect because I think that Kat and I were talking about this prior to the conversation. Just this notion of, I feel like not doing new work in this day and age is kind of a missed opportunity because perhaps we're missing the opportunity to capture the moment. I think a new work can be so vital and immediate in a way that perhaps, work that was previously done might not be able to capture. So I'm curious of where you think new work is going, because it is. I feel it's incredibly important for the theater to foster this. But from your perspective, if you folks could elaborate a little bit more on this, I think it's so important to talk about the importance of new work.
It's tricky, Jaime. It's tricky, and I won't take all of this time. But I was an artistic director for a minute. I'm interviewing in different theaters for that position again. And the thought is, yeah, new works are necessary so that they add to the canon that will then be our historical works, right? But
Mhm.
we've grown accustomed to not taking risks in this
Mhm.
country anymore.
Yeah.
uh that because we find ourselves in these kind of financial spaces that we are. New works are expensive for a number of reasons, but audiences are longing for something fresh. Yeah, we enjoy the Oklahomas, and the Oklahomas are important, but man, what else? What else? And how do we give voice to that what else without losing our shirts? That's the dominant question right now. Because then they go, okay, we'll do that new musical, but you can't do it with more than 5 people. What?
Yeah,
Right.
a lot of limitations are put on
Yeah,
new works like this because they're so expensive. I mean, it's what is it? It's at 15-20 million dollars to do start a Broadway show, and
a
even think
Broadway
of one these
show.
days.
Mhm.
And even in our modest situation with this one, so much work goes into it, and Jimmy especially, that has to do so much work because if anything changes, uh, especially
Mhm.
musically or lyrically or something like that, you have to go back, reorchestrate, redo stuff with the score. It becomes incredibly time consuming and expensive, to rework all that stuff, which is untrue for a tried and true, what they call American musical. Jimmy could speak to all
Right.
that probably much better than I could.
But some things were more laborious in the past. I think if the script changed in the 50s or 1940s, you had to have 10 carbon copies on type of each other on a typewriter. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
the stage manager was responsible for that. And every musical had a team of copyists who would take the orchestrator's work and then the new work and the changes. Expensive people, like 10 of them sitting there, uh, devotedly copying the new music into all these separate orchestra parts, which numbered
Mm.
probably 20 to 25. We only have 4. And computers are the way to do it now. So that's, dare I say, labor saving? I guess it probably.
It's just
Yeah,
different. It's different
yeah.
labor. But
Yeah.
it's the thing that the question that we always ask, what will be the new Oklahoma? What will be the
Mhm.
new Fiddler? And unless we take a chance on these new voices, then we're stuck in a moment. And so,
Which is why you see so many revivals of, that's why you're seeing so many revivals and
Right.
so many jukebox musicals because, okay, the music is set, and then all you have to do is write the connection material as far as the story is. They're,
Mhm.
dare I say, easier maybe to do. I don't know,
I don't know,
but
but there are
Well,
limitations even in that too.
I mean, I was just going to
uh,
say that, in terms of new work, when you're a living playwright, there is only new work. I mean, that's the only thing that a living person can do is new work. And in terms of reflecting the political situation, or let's not even say political, let's say human rights situation, I don't think anybody on our team is going to give up. We're all artists, and we are going to continue to do our new work. And
Mhm.
And it's hugely relevant, I think, right now in the climate that we're in.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
Thank you, Kat, for bringing that up because I have just a couple more to be mindful of your time, and I want to take the time to say thank you so much for your time because it's been such a blast so far. Lastly, here I wanted to touch on that for just a moment. This idea that we, as creative people, and you in this play, this musical, you're binding the entertainment aspect of it as well as this very strong through line of education of a kind of activism, and I'm curious how you balance that, or if that's even a conversation that you're having in collaboration to bring this to life, because it does seem to lend itself to those kinds of conversations about how can we educate or should we educate. Was that something that you folks sort of discussed deeply in terms of the material that you're working on?
I, I, I can answer in that. And this is, and I don't want to solely speak for all of us, but I think part of the reason why we collaborate is because we share a heart in common in that uh, we care about where we are in the world. We care about where we've been in the world and what we're leaving for future generations, and that we are artists, that we are committed to making sure we create a thing, yes, that's entertaining, uh, but that's also challenging and enlightening, that will convict us, that will change us. I think that's what's beautiful about this musical is that it does all of that. It's funny, but then it challenges you to look at the way you engage different, look at the way you create space for different, and then to look at how that thing that is different actually unifies us. That at the heart of all of our differences, we are human beings trying to make it in this world, and that we as artists are given a platform and in this case an opportunity to, yes, entertain, but I think we've always shared in our meetings that it is the hope that, especially in this time, that our audience will walk away with their hearts being pricked, their minds being challenged, and that their sensibilities would be open to the possibility that maybe that person who lives next door to them, who looks different from them, sounds different from them, believes differently than they do, but they're valued because of that and not devalued because of that. And that maybe in the midst of all that's different, we can connect to those things that we share in common as well. I think that's what's amazing about what we do, certainly in the theater, and people give us 90 minutes, upwards of 6 hours if you're doing the Iceman Cometh, to to have that journey. It's another soapbox opportunity for me, so I'm going to shut up and let my colleagues talk.
I think it's inherent with in the story and between all the collaborators that we want to tell a story that's engaging and that is entertaining, but might send a message without the audience maybe even being aware of it, that allows them to empathize with a character that they might not usually relate much to, that they might not usually talk to, that they might not have any interest in dealing with. But when you see them up on stage, you can you can empathize, as I said, with their obstacles and with the problems that they're trying to overcome, and maybe the audience will walk away from the evening with just as Demone said, a different perspective, uh, a seed planted to maybe think a little bit differently, but about this kind of individual or that kind of individual, that not to judge a book by its cover, to make it oversimplify it. So, and we're living in a very extreme environment right now, very polarized environment right now, that I think that could be a very helpful tool for society. So now I'll stop.
Anyone else?
I was going to say the challenge, of course, is to do this without letting the audience know that they're being, no sense of being, who wants to sit and be lectured to or
Right.
be given a message. But if you can find that fine line of, and I think
Story. It all comes down to the
the
story.
story and the characters, I would say. And it's probably best if people come to our show not even knowing it's the cross-dresser show or the Amish people show, because I think the nice thing is that once you're sitting there, you get past the superficial things that separate these folks, and you see their common humanity, and just through the art of entertaining, and that's where I think a successful show is, and characters you care about. And I was thinking of new work that I've liked, like Hamilton. Very unlikely founding fathers, but I got past that immediately, and I was caring, just like just like I was in a Rodgers and Hammerstein old-fashioned show, is how I felt about Hamilton, or Next to Normal. Just characters you become invested in right away. I think we have that. Hope we have that.
Absolutely. It's interesting. One of the things I think we said this, and certainly in the context of rehearsal too, that yes, they're Amish. Yes, they're men in dresses. Yes, they're trans. Yes, they're Black. But then they could also be Eskimo. They can also be, Mr. Snuffleupagus. They can also they can be any kind of variation of people and different. And so it's like if you allow yourself to get hung up on that, then you miss the gift in what is presented to us when these people have come together, whoever they are. Yeah. My nails are this color because I'm playing with colors for, our show right now. So yeah, I happen to play one of those men in dresses. So trying to figure out what color my nails are going to be. So there you go. I'm looking at blue today.
There you go,
Blue.
Demone. We didn't get a chance to talk about your double duty. I know it might be a little bit late for it, but I'm curious. As we're winding down here, I got one more question for you. In anticipation of the show opening, I know you folks, absolute pros. You do this every so often. That I'm sure it's part of the way that you roll. But I'm curious if we could create a little time capsule here. What is the emotion? What are the feelings that are stirring within you as you approach opening night? If you could share a couple of those thoughts here, posterity.
Everyone's staring at me.
Jimmy, you're the composer.
I think I swing between, great anxiety that all these elements, especially the musical ones in my case, would come together. The orchestra, the band, the singing, the harmonies, the melodies, and go from anxiety to, kind of a pleasant dream that it coheres in a beautiful way. So I'm going just swinging back and forth. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I'm watching the clock. At some point I have to get up, Jaime. I'm the director, but I also have to play this part. And so I've been really blessed with an understudy who's been really great and allowing me to build the show on him. But at some point this week, I've got to get up and start to get the show in my bones. So the director part of me goes, I want to at least make sure the map is set so that way we can continue to shape and build these characters in a way that I feel free enough to get up and then also play with them as an actor. And so I'm constantly challenged by the clock, and I'm going, oh God, we're supposed to have a designer run on Tuesday. We're not having that designer run on Tuesday. We have to have it on Wednesday. We have to finish this work. And it's also, dancing in the schedule that we've been given. Again, economics dictates the time that we have to for this kind of exploration. And so but that can't be an excuse. The critic doesn't want to know and doesn't care that you only had 5 minutes to put it together. So that's what I'm dancing with.
It's an amazing swing of the pendulum between panic, pure sheer panic, and then to the other side when you're in the rehearsal room and something coalesces and comes together, and you've got 10 very talented performers in the rehearsal coming together and singing Jimmy's beautiful melodies, and I'm just totally moved, and I go, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is going to work. An audience, of course, has to feel what I'm feeling, but you don't know. You don't know until you put it up on stage, and the audience has their butts in the seat, and the lights come up, and you do it. So it's. You feel like a real target, I guess that's all I can say. So
yeah, I was just going to say that in a way it's like beads on a necklace, and you are working on all the separate beads, and ultimately it all has to be strung together so that it is unified as a necklace. And I'm a optimist in that regard, that it will all be beaded together with all the beads. And our stage manager, who really is the kind of person that in some ways ensures that all of this comes together, yesterday said something that is always so true. Like, she's going to be watching over the show, and she will ensure anything from all the lines being correct, and that for her to be able to organize it all so that it works when people go away, is that it be put together in that way. So, we have a great team, and that's wonderful.
It's funny, Kat, because it's the thing I said to her, because once I'm in this as an actor, I'm tossing my director hat in the trash. Don't talk to me as a director. I'm an actor unless we're in an extreme emergency. So it is really your show. It is our dance captain show. Even my associate director who will come in and watch the show. I literally am switching hats and will be in that actor chair. So I will lean on our stage manager and our dance captain and our associate directors to keep us in
Our
order.
stage manager is Bernita Robinson, and she is an incredible
Legend.
stage manager and a legend. Yes.
Yeah.
she's the queen. What can we say?
And she goes by the name the Queen. Yeah.
I call her Your Highness.
I call
Queen
them
has spoken.
General Douglas MacArthur to me.
Well, and that's sometimes required. She's got to crack that whip. It's not always bubbly and rainbows and butterflies. She's like,
tough love, as they
we
say.
got 2 weeks to put this on. Let's go.
Yeah, bless our stage managers, our unsung heroes. I believe that.
I agree that.
Oh man,
with that. Yeah.
Oh, and
they keep the whole thing running.
Yep. Yep.
Well, there are so many people behind the scenes with the designers and the running crews, and it's amazing. So it's a true collaborative. It takes a village, I guess, and we have
a hell of a village.
A hell of a village, right? That's creating this thing. So I'll use the phrase, forgive me, everybody else, we're optimistically hopeful, I guess, right? We're cautiously optimistic. Is that the phrase?
That is the phrase.
Yes.
I had one quote, and also we're waiting to meet our final collaborator, which is the audience.
Yep.
And
because we'll learn a lot from them.
We have previews, and anyway, it's a great, it's one of the steps along the way, and it can be exciting too. And also, there's a work of fiction that describes a place that just fits the Big Dipper in our story to a T. So I thought if I read it, it might make people want to visit it. think of this as the Big Dipper Inn. It is a haven for lost souls, a melting pot for different cultures, a place of equal opportunities for the high and the low, the rough and the smooth. As in life, not all the guests form alliances, but by the end of this show, all are in some way transformed.
Yeah, that's our show.
Oh, wow.
And that's a
And that
description
is,
of the Grand Hotel.
I think,
Grand Hotel, yeah.
that is a remarkably beautiful and poignant note to end on. So, first and foremost, thank you folks so much for your time, and of course for, creating these kinds of villages off stage and on stage, as well as just bringing us hope, which is very timely and always needed. But I'd like to remind folks that Welcome to the Big Dipper is going to open November 21st with an engagement through Sunday, December 29th at the theater at St.
No,
Jude's.
January 29th.
No, December.
January 29th. Oh, I got the wrong information.
Yeah, December.
January
You're right. I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
I didn't get enough
Optimistic.
sleep, okay?
He's hopeful.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, very
Optimistic. Well, let's and I'll make sure that we have this information in the episode description so folks can check it out. But again, thank you folks so much for your time. This has been a remarkable experience, and I know we just scratched the surface, but I wish you all the best on the production. But again, thanks so much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Jaime.
I mean,
Thank you.
Bye.